At least 7 countries are awaiting letters on the new U.S. tariff rates that they can expect if they do not get in line with Washington's demands on trade. And Mr. Trump giving no further details on his social media post, but his Commerce Secretary suggesting that 15 to 20 letters could be sent in the next 2 days. The U.S. president stressing he will not extend the deadline for deals or tariffs set for the 1st of August, which many see as a pushback of the deadline originally set for today. That's the 9th of July. Mr. Trump also turning the heat up on sectoral sectors, warning of a 50% duty on copper imports and a 200% import tax on pharmaceuticals. Although Mr. Trump says drug makers will have a year to, quote, get their act together. The U.S. president adding trade talks are going well with China and the European Union, hinting at a possible deal. He's also targeting BRICS nations with a flat 10% import tariff, accusing the bloc of trying to undermine the U.S. dollar. The Trump administration expects to collect more than $300 billion in tariffs by the end of the year. Vietnam working on measures to diversify its exports and to cut reliance on the American market. Vietnam is the second country and the only one in Southeast Asia to have reached a deal with the Trump administration. Hanoi now facing a 20% tariff on many goods. That's down from the 46% initially threatened in April. It also has a 40% levy on transshipments from third countries. In return, U.S. products entering Vietnam will have 0 tariffs. Meanwhile, Indonesia's top negotiator is preparing for talks with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in Washington today. Airlangga Hartarto is aiming to tout Indonesia's strategic importance in global trade, particularly in its natural resources. Despite numerous concessions, including a proposal to slash tariffs on U.S. goods, Jakarta still faces a potential 32% tariff, unchanged from April. India is set to discuss the impact of U.S. tariffs on copper after President Trump slammed a 50% levy on imports of the metal. The U.S. is a key market for Indian copper, accounting for $360 million or 17% of India's exports last year. And more, we're joined by Ishan Garg reporting live from New Delhi. Ishan, well, clearly India will be facing some pressure there if the U.S. does go ahead with those tariffs on copper. It also faces possible tariffs on pharmaceuticals. Any sign of how New Delhi will be reacting or responding to these new threats?
Well, it remains unclear right now whether these tariffs are indeed going to be hitting India. But if they do, there's certainly a big degree of concern because copper is something that India exports globally, about $2 billion worth of, but about 18%, 17% of it, as you pointed out, goes to the U.S. So that's certainly a very key market. But what's a bigger concern, however, are these proposed tariffs of roughly 200% on pharmaceutical imports. Now, of the $30 billion worth of pharmaceutical products that India exports globally, about $9 billion go to the U.S. And for many Indian companies, U.S. is a key market. And to give you a sense of how key a market U.S. is, roughly 40 to 50% of all over-the-counter cheap drugs sold in the U.S. are actually manufactured in India. So if about 200% import duties are levied on these products, it could make operations a whole lot more expensive for Indian companies. At the same time, Indian pharma businesses have also said that as President Donald Trump proposes and pushes his agenda of Make in America, he wants to onshore a lot of manufacturing of these drugs in the U.S. as well, which is another concern for Indian companies. Now, these tariffs, it remains to be seen how they're going to impact trade negotiations. As far as we understand, it is an already very complex negotiation. Indian officials have been speaking to their U.S. counterparts, both in Washington and in New Delhi. Several rounds of negotiations have gone on, and we understand that the deal is supposed to be in its very final stages, and it remains to be seen when it crosses that final line.
All right, Ishan, essentially, given the pain that India will feel if these tariffs on copper and pharmaceuticals go through, and as you say, no clear progress as yet on any deal between the U.S. and India on concessions and then a lowering of tariffs from Washington. Do you see these new tariffs as posing significant jeopardy to an agreement on trade?
There is no doubt that these are going to add another layer of complexity to the negotiations. And not just these tariffs. The wide range of tariffs that India is now potentially facing. It includes the 10% base tariff that all countries are facing, the 26% tariffs that was imposed in India but now has been paused, the 10% that President Trump said will be imposed on BRICS countries. And then on top of that, you've got the aluminum and steel import tariffs. And then you've got the 50% on copper and then 200% potentially on pharmaceutical. All of this is going to complicate negotiations to a big degree. But trade experts here, including some of the leading trade organizations in the country, like the Global Trade Research Initiatives, have said that it really depends on how India chooses to tackle these issues of trade. We have seen already that India has filed motions at the World Trade Organization contesting some of U.S. tariffs on steel, on aluminium, on automobile products as well. And it is seen as though if these negotiations are taken up at the WTO level, they are somehow seen as they are not part of the political narrative of trade between India and the U.S. From India's perspective, it would be crucial to get all of these tariffs off the table when that trade deal is signed. And it remains to be seen if that will happen. We understand that there is a bit more runway till 1st of August, till officials have to finish that deal.
Shankar there explaining why already very difficult trade talks have taken on more layers of complexity in just a few days. Shankar, live from New Delhi.